on, guys? Smarty here, and as you know, Season 1 of Last on the Bandwagon has officially come to a close. Click the link right there. Anywho, that does not mean I won't turn on a camera and talk to you about video games and whatnot. So while I am one to talk about the games that I've never played before in my life, let's hop over to the other side of the fence. You know, that long, very long list of games which I consider to be my favorites. But for your convenience, I'm going to shorten it down to 5. Which in theory sounds like a massively long list that will take an assload of work, but alas, I'm up for a challenge! Ladies and gentlemen, what you are about to witness is a list of 5 games which I consider near and dear to my heart. And no, this isn't a list ranking my favorites in any particular order, as these games all affected me in ways that I can only describe to you in words of la pasión. So with that said, these are 5 of my personal favorite games. Number 5. Now, if you knew some of my friends, they would be able to tell you that one of my favorite genres in video gaming is survival horror. And I love survival horror with a passion. Some of the games, though, you'll see on Last on the Bandwagon in the future. But that aside, there is one game that actually introduced me to survival horror, pulled me in by the collar, and I never looked back after that. It's also the same game that when I told my grandmother the name of it, she was recoiling in fear. I know, believe it or not, this is actually the one. Anyway, Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem. The game starts off where you play as Alexandra Roivas, this woman in Rhode Island who's trying to unveil the mysteries of her grandfather's murder in their family mansion. You find this secret room, and in the secret room is a book which is bound in flesh and bone, which basically looks like the Necronomicon. It is. But it is called the Tome of Eternal Darkness, and in the Tome of Eternal Darkness are stories and tales of past family members, and you get to play as those members as they discover the Tome of Eternal Darkness, the old ones which are in the game. This game is very Lovecraftian, by the way. It's very much, like, it is the most non-Lovecraftian game out there. Now, while the story is a good story, one of my other favorite aspects of it is mainly the gameplay, because the gameplay of Eternal Darkness brought so much to the table, like I was saying before. It was so innovative, and because of this game, so many games took inspiration from it, so many games took certain elements that would be incorporated in later games. For example, the sanity meter. And what the sanity meter was it was a little bar in the corner of the game. When you were attacked or when you saw an enemy, your sanity would go down because your character would be in fear of the enemy. For example, if your sanity meter went down, you would hallucinate that your character would die in an awful way or something like that. Even the game would fuck with you in the sense that, like, if your sanity meter went all the way down, like there was nothing left, a bug would crawl across the TV screen, and you would think it's a real bug, but it's actually in the game, or it would say you would lose connection to the TV or something like that, you would lose audio. Basically, a lot of technical things happened when you were playing that game, and I remember the first time I played it, I wish I had the save file for it now, but when I played this game, I remember vividly, I let the sanity meter go all the way down because I was just fucking around with the game, and I went to go save, and as soon as I hit the save button, it basically said, oh, deleting memory now, and I was far into the game, and I just freaked the fuck out. This game added a lot when it came to gameplay. Other than that, as you're discovering characters in the game, you travel through time as you're playing as the different characters. So, say, Alexandra Roivas is looking through the book, and she's looking up a past family member from her bloodline named Pius Augustus. It would go all the way back to the BC era, and you would play as Pius Augustus in that time. It would go from there, Renaissance times, the modern era. It's one of those games that really told a narrative unconventionally, and as you guys know, that is one of my favorite things in horror. Even in video games, when a story is told unconventionally, and that is why I love Eternal Darkness. I am one of the many people who are looking forward to the spiritual successor of Eternal Darkness, Shadow of the Eternals, If you don't know, a bunch of people from Silicon Knights, like Dennis Diac and a bunch of other developers, got together and they wanted to make a spiritual successor to Eternal Darkness, except in the next-gen engines. What they wanted to do was put together a game that was very much like Eternal Darkness, in the same vein, and hopefully revive survival horror, because, I hate to say it, the well has sort of run dry for survival horror as of late, and I would love to see it come back. Hell, it's the reason I bought a Wii U, so hopefully looking forward to that game. And speaking of the Wii U, there is another reason I bought this. Number 4. Now this game I'm about to talk about, I've spoken about at the Blistered Thumbs panel. If you were there, you remember exactly what I'm about to talk about, but it's also one of the reasons why I don't like Ocarina of Time. Yeah, so I was gonna say that The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker was actually my first foray into the Zelda franchise. This is where I started off, and really, I'm absolutely happy that I started off during Wind Waker. The story of Wind Waker it's a fun, conventional story, which I had a lot of fun with during my childhood when I played it. It's your standard fight against Ganondorf, which I know, much like Ocarina of Time, it's that same sort of struggle. However, the thing is, what Zelda added to the story and what Zelda added to the gameplay was actually very cool. It added this seafaring sort of tale where you had to go from island to island to basically figure out what you were doing. Much like how Ocarina of Time was when it was you had to travel from town to town. It added a sense of adventure, like a grander sense of adventure to Zelda as opposed to Ocarina of Time. That's why I like it. There was that mystery and that freedom of traveling through the seas and traveling all over that really dragged me in, whether it be going to Dragon Roost Island, whether it be going to any of those places that I enjoyed to the fullest extent. That's what I love about The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker. Number 3. Okay, so before we speak about this, I just want to stress again, this is not a ranked list. So the reason this isn't higher on the list is for personal reasons. So now you know, I'm not like ranking these in any way, shape, or form. I'm just talking about them as I talk about them. Yeah, so speaking of adventure, Shadow of the Colossus. Now, I don't need to speak about this in full, because I've done a review on it, and again, link below. This game is the definition of adventure. I know that when I first played it, I probably had some different feelings. I don't remember my exact review of the game. I remember saying it was a new favorite of mine. The game was, like, I would argue that Shadow of the Colossus is art. Like, if you're debating that video games are art, this is a contender that it is a fucking piece of art. If you don't know what Shadow of the Colossus is, I'm just gonna put it, like, in a nutshell, your whole goal is you're trying to resurrect this woman from your village. So you bring her to a forbidden land, and you're told that you have to defeat 16 Colossus. 16 beings that exist on this forbidden land, and then once that happens, your girlfriend will wake up. So you do so. What makes the game fun is really the build-up to the bosses. And I know that sounds weird because half of the game, which is the build-up, half of the game is traveling. Because the Colossi are the only bosses, they're the only enemies in the game that you're gonna fight. And each of them are different. And the only thing you really know about the Colossi you're about to fight as you're building up to it is the Dorman's Riddle. And Dorman is the giant deity in the ceiling that you talk to every now and again. That's his name, but yeah. So let me give you an example of one. And this is my favorite riddle, which left me scratching my head until the boss came up. Thy next foe within the mist, a giant canopy soars to the heavens. The anger of the sleeping giant shatters the earth. Now, those of you who don't know what that is, that's the third boss. And I'm not gonna tell you what he is, because this game, the build-up for it is fantastic, and I want you to have the same experience I did. But yeah, I want you just to understand that I was recoiling in fear as I saw what I was about to fight, and I want you to have that same experience. Now, I know I cheated on the review because I was playing the Shadow of the Colossus HD remake, which came with Ico. Don't worry, we'll get to that at some point. But, what I wanted to bring up is, I want to wonder what the PS2 graphics were like, because holy shit, this is a good-looking game, and I want to imagine that this is probably the greatest-looking PS2 game of all time. The soundtrack to Shadow of the Colossus, while there isn't a lot to it, it still is very effective in what you're listening to while you're fighting, what you're listening to while things are going on in the game. It's a good soundtrack, I just wish there was more of it. You know what I mean? There's not a lot. So yeah, Shadow of the Colossus. If it was a ranked list, it would be my #1 choice, if not for personal reasons. But yeah, it's a phenomenal game. If you want a more in-depth look at the game, go click the link down below for my review. I do have one question though before I end this segment. When the fuck is The Last Guardian coming out? Number 2. Yeah, now you know why it's personal. Okay, so a lot of you will probably say one of two things. One, that Halo 2 is probably the greatest multiplayer game of all time. Two, why the fuck is this, so far down on your list? Because, I know, the story itself to Halo 2, after looking at it years back, it really was a lead into Halo 3. That's all it was. It was a lead into Halo 3. It ended on a cliffhanger. The ending lines were cliche, but honestly, I had fun playing it. I mean, for the time, 2004, it was a fun game. It was a blast and a half just doing this space opera thing. It was fantastic. But, yeah, that's not the reason why it's on my list. The real reason why it's on my list is the multiplayer. Halo 2 is probably the reason why I'm on the internet doing what I'm doing now. It was the first game I got when I had Xbox Live. I discovered a lot through it. I discovered Machinima, I discovered Machinima clans. Back in the day, that's where I sort of got my start on the internet. I was a part of Machinima clans, and I made Halo Machinimas through those with friends, and I learned more about it. Halo 3 came out, and I got more into it, and that's how I got my start doing what I'm doing now. If not for Halo, I would not be doing this internet YouTube thing. I owe them everything that I'm doing now. So, if anyone from Bungie is watching, I personally just want to say right now, thank you. Thank you for basically allowing me to do what I do now because of this game. And I know it sounds sappy, and I know it sounds very, very stupid, but yeah, I really mean that openly and earnestly, that Halo 2 is the reason I'm talking to you guys right now. Let's talk about the multiplayer. Oh my fucking god, that game. I remember, that game is probably, that is one of the most fun, the most competitive multiplayer games. Even when you weren't playing it conventionally, it was still fun. A lot of mini games were made for it, a lot of various types of games that people just had fun doing. I remember zombies versus humans, cat and mouse, the floor is lava. A lot of games like that were made, and I remember being a part of game nights where we would come up with these random as fuck games, whether it be using super jumping. This was a fun game. This was a game that you could play anytime and always find something new that made it fun. While the story to Halo 2, while everything about Halo 2 in the campaign was fun, the multiplayer was where it was at. That's where you could find the most fun, because the community was so devoted, and the community was so innovative that they were able to come up with ideas. And that's what they included when they made Halo 3, and which was also on this list. It would be on the top 10. Halo 2, man, I don't really have much to say about it other than it's the reason I'm here today. Sorry for the short one, guys, but that's what I gotta say about it. It's an awesome multiplayer game. It's an awesome game all around. It's why I'm here. Number 1. Alright. Let's just say it now. This took a long time to try and come up with something to say about this game, because there's so much to it that I wasn't sure what to write down for, like, notes and what to not write down. I had to put a Bethesda game as the #1 game for this list, and when I say had, not like an obligation, I mean in the sense of, like, for personal reasons, I had to put this down. Yeah. Fallout 3. Fallout 3 was one of those games, when I discovered it, it was a game that really introduced me to the idea of a game creating its own lore, and a game sort of expanding its own lore in the universe. I know there were games before it, like there was Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and Fallout Tactics. I have those games, I haven't played them. When I first saw Fallout 3, I was like, oh shit, it's gonna be a part of, like, the wasteland. It's gonna be this apocalyptic scenario, and I'm gonna have so much fun with it. And then it made me realize that RPGs don't have to be your standard JRPG type games. It doesn't have to be like Final Fantasy, so to speak. That's when I learned about the hybrid RPGs like Fallout New Vegas, Oblivion, games like that. Really, I dove into those sort of games. What I love about Fallout 3 is the wide range of characters, the wide range of locations. I love the Wasteland as a place in general. It's one of the greatest settings in a video game I think I've ever seen. I would call it the greatest hub world I've ever witnessed, but really it's not a hub world. It is just, it's a place. It feels like its own existing place. It's one of the few games where I actually beat the game and then I beat all the DLC complete 100%. And I don't usually do that for games. Like, that's one of the few. And I know I rarely finish games on this channel, but this was one of the games I beat. And no, I'm not doing a playthrough of Fallout 3 because that would take for fucking ever. I still have, like, some of my older stuff. I have my Vault-Tec lunchbox, and I have, even though it's broken, I have my bobblehead. I love this game with a passion, and I'm eagerly awaiting Fallout 4. When Fallout 4 happens, I'm gonna be gone from the internet for a good while. I mean, like, my only sort of grasp on the Fallout universe right now is New Vegas, and that, I hate to say it, New Vegas felt like an expansion pack to me. It was just sort of this expansion pack to Fallout 3, which could have been a lot better if expanded more on. That's what I love about Fallout 3, the lore, the universe, the wasteland in general, all of the people that you meet, whether it be the people from Nuketown, Tenpenny Tower. All of these places really just made the game its own sort of universe. And I will never forget that game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I've talked about it many times, but I don't think you can understand how great the game is to me. So there you go, people. Those were just 5 of my favorite personal games that really got me to appreciate gaming as a form of media. And hopefully you understand why it's not a top 5 ranked list or anything like that, as if it was, then this would have taken a lot more time and dedication to trying to place all these, but obviously Shadow of the Colossus would have been #1. So other than that, hopefully you guys understand that Last on the Bandwagon is in fact going to be back for Season 2. I have a lot planned for the season, and I've gotten a couple of episodes ready to go. Everything's coming along pretty well so far. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this list of my favorite games and whatnot. Before we go, though, what are some of your favorite games? I just want to know, out of curiosity. Put in the comments what your personal favorite games are. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. This is Smarty. See you back on the bandwagon.